That's why I said Paul's spirit was stirred up in him when he reached inside the city, when he saw the city was completely given unto idolatry. Now I'm gonna continue reading. This is St. Paul visits Athens. It says, at Athens, St. Paul saw the famous hill of the Acropolis, Greek for high city. Ancient cities were often built on a hill for better defense, which that brings my mind back to when the Lord said the cities on a hill cannot be hid. The most beautiful, so he would have had to have seen it. It couldn't be hid. The most beautiful and famous structure on the Acropolis is the Parthenon, or temple to the goddess Athena, which you just read there. You can spend a lot of time staring at this architectural wonder. St. Paul would have entered the Acropolis through the Propylaea, a monumental structure consisting of 3 wings, which you just read there. The Acts of the Apostles in the New Testament says that St. Paul spoke to the people from the Areopagus, or Hill of Ares, the god of war. Baedeker says this rocky hill was the seat of Supreme Court of Athens. Let's see if I want to read more or not. In fact, I'm going to continue reading. St. Paul has seen many temples to pagan gods in Athens, and he was upset. Some would even joke that there are more gods in Athens than people. So St. Paul spoke to the men of Athens about their temple he saw dedicated to an unknown god. Paul then said this unknown god is a true God who created the world, which we're going to get into that too, Lord willing. His son Yahushua rose from the dead and will judge and save the world. A modern bronze tablet here today is inscribed with St. Paul's sermon. On the northern slopes of the Areopagus are the remains of a basilica dedicated to St. Dionysius, a member of the court of the Areopagus who was St. Paul's first convert in Athens. Other sites in Athens include the Odeum of Theater of Herodes Atticus that St. Paul would have seen. It is so excellently preserved that musical performances are still held there today. St. Paul would have visited the Agora, or Greek marketplace, where there was an altar of mercy. There is the Heracleion, a temple housing the wooden cult image of Athena from 406 BC. We read that there too. That said to Athena and Poseidon. St. Paul could have seen the gymnasium, which gym means naked, the gymnasium of Ptolemy, with the stone statue of the god Hermes. A later addition below the Acropolis is the Church of the Holy Apostles. That's good there. There's a lot of more, so they got a lot of other stuff. Now I'm gonna read a little bit more about the idolatry in Athens. Like the elders say, this whole ain't the thing about calling white men the devil. You know, the scriptures say in Romans 11:33, the depth of riches. How could it be deep if it's so much white man is the devil? This is idolatry in Athens, another site. Supposing Paul arrived by ship, he would have landed at Piraeus and would have gone north from the harbor and entered Athens by the double gate on the west side of the city, where 4 highways are converged. Before passing the gate, however, he would have gone through an extensive cemetery where he would have noticed the graves of many distinguished Athenian citizens, the most famous being Menander, the son of Diopithes. Passing through the gates, Paul would have seen the temple of Demeter with statues of the goddess and her daughter. So he said his spirit was stirred in him when he saw the city was given to idolatry, which it makes sense because it's telling you the things that Paul would have had to have seen when he got into the city. And he said he saw many of these things, many of them are on the Acropolis, which is what? It was on a high hill. The Lord, he would have had to have seen it. What did the Lord say? A city on a hill cannot be hid. So there was no way that it would have been able to hide from out of his sight. He would have had to have seen it. It says, a little further on, he would have passed the statue of Poseidon hurling his trident. Beyond this, he would have seen the statues of hailing Athena, Zeus, Apollo, and Hermes standing in the sanctuary of Dionysus. While Paul waited for Silas and Timothy, whom he had constructed to join him as soon as possible, Acts 17:15, he must have explored the city in the same manner in which tourists do today. He would have visited the royal colonnade, the metronome or sanctuary of the mother of the gods with her image. Now the scriptures say he went there, but he could have seen that also. Alright, in the Agora, the apostle would have passed what's sometimes called music hall at Athens, the Odeon, a small roof theater. In the Agora, the Athenians had an altar of mercy, which stood in a grove of laurels and olives. Close to the Agora, in the gymnasium of Ptolemy, there was a stone statue of Hermes and a bronze statue of Ptolemy. Wherever Paul turned, he must have seen statues, temples, and shrines. So wherever Paul was at, turn left, turn right, you just see idols everywhere. You know? There was the sanctuary of Dioscuri, the Serapeum, in the lower part of this city, the temple of Olympian Zeus, southeast of the Acropolis, the Pythium on the southern side of the Acropolis, the sanctuary of Dionysus on the foot of the Acropolis, and many more. Entering the Acropolis, he would have passed 2 statues of horsemen facing each other on opposite sides of the road. And I actually seen that on the internet. Low Willie put that in post-production, but I actually seen that. You know, two husbands facing each other. On his right, on the western edge of the Acropolis, was the Temple of Victory Athena, the so-called wingless Victory. Paul would have looked towards the sea and seen the Bay of Phaleron, perhaps with grain ships from Alexandria, Egypt. He would have visited the famous and beautiful of all Greek temples, the Parthenon, but Paul didn't think it was beautiful. All right. And would have, and then the Heracleiteum, standing on the northern edge of the Acropolis. Here his eyes must have fallen on the oldest and most venerated statue of Athena, which, like that of Diana of Ephesus, was believed to have fallen from heaven. Acts 1935. Finally, there was the most conspicuous statue of the city goddess, a dedication from the spoils of the Battle of Marathon. An ancient proverb declared that there were more gods in Athens than men. And wherever the apostle looked, in niches and on pedestals, in temples and on street corners, were gods and demigods. Busts of Hermes were on every corner, and statues and altars were in the courtyard of every home. So statues everywhere, man. This city was completely given to idolatry, like the scriptures say. Among this forest of deities, it said a forest of deities. We read it said it was a forest of idols. Paul discovered one altar dedicated to the unknown God. There are many examples of similar inscriptions in the Greco-Roman world. The idea, of course, was that these altars to the unknown gods ensured that no deity was omitted from worship, which we'll when we get into that too. And this is the site called Archaeology in Acts 2. This is the last part, and we'll go to the next verse. Why was Paul so incensed with the idols in Athens? Is this an accurate description of the place? A.T. Robertson notes, Pliny, but there was two Pliny. There was Pliny the Elder and Pliny the Younger. Pliny the Elder was the uncle of Pliny the Younger. And if I'm not mistaken, he also taught him also. It says, A.T. Robertson, I'm reading from the top again. Why was Paul so incensed with the idols in Athens? Is this an accurate description of the place? Or is Paul accurate saying there was idols everywhere? It was given the idolatry we just read? A.T. Robertson notes, Pliny, the Roman writer, states that in the time of Nero, A.D. 54 to 68, which was during the time of Paul, Athens had over 30,000 public statues, besides countless private ones in the homes. Petronius, a Roman satirist, sneers that it was easier to find a god than a man in Athens. Every gateway or porch had its protecting god. So that's historical documentation showing that the scriptures is true. You know? Yep. It's historical documentation right there. So can you read the next verse? Verse 17?
Acts 17 to 17. Therefore disputed he in the synagogue with the Jews and with the devout persons, and in the market daily with them that met with him.
Matter of fact, can you go on the blue letter? You be done with this one, right? You can go on the blue letter and look up the word, type in market daily. Acts 17 should pop up.
Okay, let's see.
Because he said he was in the market daily. Was he like in the soup kitchen? like the thing you said we were talking about? Or was he actually in the market? I remember the Elder Hart brought this out like about probably 2 years ago. You know? It's Acts 17.
Market daily.
And click on market to see what the Greek word for market is.
Okay, this is the Greek word for...
It's blue letter, right?
Yeah. The Greek word for market is agora. It said any assembly, especially of the people.
Yeah, an assembly, that's what we really need. An assembly, especially of the people. So when you look up the word market in the blue letter in the Greek, you'll find out that it's the word agora. Well, let's find out. Let's see what that's talking about.
You say like daily?
Nah. Just I just wanted you to put that in market daily, so go right to Acts 17. Now, this is from Wikipedia. I want to read what it says on Wikipedia first, and then I want to go into more into it. This is agora. It says the word agora pronounced agora is Greek for open place of assembly, which you just read, right? And early in the history of Greece, designated the area in the city where freeborn citizens could gather to hear civic announcements, muster for military campaigns, or discuss politics. Later, the agora defined the open-air, often tented marketplace of a city, as it still does in Greece, where merchants had their shops and where craftsmen made and sold their wares. So keep in mind, the agora was a place where people sold stuff. Craftsmen made things, they had their shops, people sold their wares, sold their goods. Retail traders, known as kapaloi, served as middlemen between the craftsman and the consumer, but were largely mistrusted in ancient times as unnecessary parasites. In his Politics, Aristotle states that the kapaloi served a kind of exchange which is justly censored, for it is unnatural in a mode by which men unfairly gain from one another. These retail traders were mostly medics, not freeborn citizens of the city, today known as legal aliens. Alright? While the craftsmen could be medics, citizens, or even free slaves who had become skilled artisans. So you had different people there that were selling their goods. Alright? Not freeborn citizens of the city, today known as legal aliens, like somebody who may not actually be probably was a born citizen in Athens and Greece, like out there on 34th Street. You got Hamites out there selling their fake stuff, you know? In the Agora of Athens, they're not actually citizens of here, but they might be legal aliens, so to speak. They call Mexicans illegal aliens. They call them strangers, but illegal strangers. They're not here by citizenship. Them Hamites selling their fake stuff out there on 34th Street, they're legal aliens. They might actually be from this country, be citizens of the country, but not actually naturally here. You know what I'm saying? Understand? They're from another country, but they might have citizenship here. In the Agora of Athens, like I was then, in the Agora of Athens, there were confectioners who made pastries and sweets, slave traders, fishmongers, vintners, cloth merchants, shoemakers, dressmakers, and jewelry purveyors. A special separate potter's market was reserved for the buying and selling of cookware. So they were selling all types of goods in the Agora. And food also. Like you got them Arabs, like legal aliens.
Right.
Them Arabs, they selling their camel meat out there where we be speaking at. Where we be debating with people at, right?
Yep.
We be debating with them out there. With people out there.
Too.
Yeah, them Elamites too. Them Elamites, them Arabs, Elam and Ishmael, like the brother said. A special separate potter's market was reserved for the buying and selling of cookware, as that was considered solely the provenance of women and was frequented by female slaves on task for their mistresses or by the